Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Tilt. These are the things I learned today, but this is the first Friday of the Tilt. This one's coming to you a little later. You know, getting used to this new practice of studying every day and working it into my calendar doesn't work so well when you have a Rotary meeting. So this is kind of fun. I get to give you a little week in review of some of the things we did on the Tilt and then pick up on something I promised to get to yesterday. So earlier in the week, of course, we dug into things like that article from NPR about institutional buying of homes and how they're actually finding it increases diversity. And we talked about the greenwashing. That was one of my favorite things of the week. The coffee pods that'll say they're recyclable with a little tiny disclaimer that says, probably not recyclable in your area. So that was a fun one from earlier this week. That idea that maybe what if procrastination, delaying, not getting things done is simply a habit on focusing on the work rather than the reward. And if we focus more on the reward. And then we talked about something that turned out to be a little bit prophetic for later in the week. We talked about that quote from Ryan Holiday's book, and that his book is Right Things Right Now, and this quote came from it. You can protest, you can call them all bastards, you can damn the whole world is corrupt and broken. Just know that in doing so, you may put yourself out of the running to be of service to anything but your sense of superiority. Now, we went over that Wednesday morning, and then, of course, later that day is when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And that assassin literally took himself out of service, out of the ability to be of service to anybody. People celebrating such a terrible downfall publicly is, they're taking themselves out of the running to be of service to any of the things that they care about. And it's so unnecessary. And then, of course, this week, we also had 9/11 and the 24-year memorial of 9/11. So this has clearly been a big week. But what I started to touch on was that idea that young people can do things that they see older people doing and think that that's the way to be successful. And sometimes it can be, but what's left out of it often is that they may be in different situations. Now, I give the example sometimes of, say, some big business magazine interviewing a billionaire, and the billionaire says, well, how I handle my time is this. And here's how I run my day. Now, there might be some insight to take away from that, might even be valuable. But the problem is you probably shouldn't implement that if you're, currently making $120,000 a year and trying to get yourself up to 180. Because there are things you need to do to span that gap of income that aren't the same as a billionaire. So the idea is that whatever your strategy is that you want to be on, you have to follow that strategy. I talked earlier in the week about Chuck Norris and the way that he deals with worry. But he also talked about goal progression and this idea of, like, I just wanted to win a local tournament, and then a county tournament, and then a state tournament, and then nationals. And in that, it's really easy. Because if you want to go to nationals, then you have to move through those other progressions. There's no other way to get there. But getting successful in life oftentimes is not a clear progression. It's not just win nationals and then do this. So you have to chart your path in an entrepreneurial way as you either move through corporate America, or if you're a business owner, you have to chart that path. And in doing so, what you don't necessarily want to do is, if we're talking about it like a road you're traveling, if what you're currently in is a Camry, you may not want to do the driving that the person driving the Lamborghini is able to do. You want to work on what's your next stage of development on the way to your goals. There's a guy that I worked with for years. We hired him onto the team, and he was so smart, so great to work with. Eric Davis here, if you're out there, shout out. But this guy told me a story of when he was a Navy SEAL sniper and ran sniper cell out of Coronado for a while, as I understand it. Well, what he told me stories of is there is a stalk that the snipers need to do, and that's where they're going to be out in the field, and they've got to creep up on a post, and that post is going to have some observers in it, and they're looking for you. Those observers are able to guide people out in the field, and if they see you, how did he put it? He said, we don't make you feel bad or anything, but we just say you suck and get out of here. Because he says it's unbelievable how many people fail. But one of the ways he would see people fail is you're out there in the inner California desert, you're crawling through the dirt so slowly that your sweat is creating mud as you go. It is miserable. And as you're crawling through there and you're keeping your low profile, moving really slow like you're supposed to, you look over and there's a guy who's just like popped up and he's running. And you're like, what? Like, that's so easy. And nobody's caught him. And so you jump up, and he said that guy would jump up out of his spot and immediately get popped by the observers. You see, because while he was laying there executing his strategy, it was very, very difficult for him. He looked up and saw it being easier for somebody else. And because it was easier for somebody else, he said it should be easier for me. But what he didn't realize is the other person's strategy was different. There was an 18-wheeler parked between them and the observation post. So that person had 150 yards they could run and still be hidden. The person crawling through the dirt didn't. Now, your strategy in life might have you crawling through the dirt. It might be really, really, really hard right now. If your strategy is crawling through the dirt, you need to focus on whether or not your strategy is going to work. It may. He may have had the better strategy to approach that observation point. His strategy didn't go wrong because it was a bad strategy. His strategy went wrong because he tried to copy somebody else's. And I'm telling you, that happens more often to people in their businesses and careers than I would like to admit has happened to people. All you can do, this doesn't mean you got to carve your own path. You have to base it on principles, but base it on the principles that are going to get you to your next spot in your strategy with your skill sets, talents, abilities, network. So next time you're talking to somebody who's a little further down the road than you are, and you're looking for advice or you're getting mentorship, ask them what they would have done at the current stage you're in. You're going to get a very different answer than the answer you get if you say, how do you handle your calendar? How do you approach clients? It might be better to ask, if you were in my spot with your knowledge now, how would you take this next step? And so then you're very importantly not only building your strategy, but you're getting some of your best mentors and advice to contribute to your strategy instead of copying theirs. And if they're people that are mentoring you, they will happily help you mold your strategy. You don't have to do it alone, nor should you. You need to rely on people that have more experience. So, myself included, I rely on people with more experience than me. So with that, it's a crazy week. As we finish out the week, I think if I were to honor Charlie Kirk's memory, I think regardless of how you felt about him, but I'll tell you, I think he was an amazing man that lived totally aligned with his values. But I think if I were to honor him in any way, I would invite you to go to church this weekend. Just pick one nearby, see if they preach the Bible, and give it a shot for 7-8 months. And I mean that. Because all too often, we just don't have a place where we go with other people that we love and care about and just hear a positive message together. And regardless of what church you go to, overwhelmingly, it's likely to be very positive messages. And I think that's something our world needs right now. So that's just my encouragement to everybody. I want to let you know as we finish the first week of this tilt and as we move into the rest of 2025, I'm just so happy y'all could join us. And I hope this gives you an opportunity to tilt into your week differently, learn a little more, get away from some of the short form stuff. And I'll see you here next week.